Scottie Scheffler is the best golfer on the planet, and right now he is walking into the most chaotic moment golf has seen in years. New rules, a player revolt, and a governing body at war with its own stars. The world number one has now made his position clear, and he is doing it weeks before the one major that could define his career. Here's the full story. To understand why Scottie Scheffler's reaction matters more than anyone else's, you first have to understand the storm that is currently tearing through professional golf. Because over the last 6 months, the people who run the sport have introduced a wave of changes so sweeping that the locker room has erupted, and they could not have picked a worse time to do it. The US Open is just weeks away, and the most powerful voice in the game has finally weighed in. It started at the top. Brian Rolap arrived in 2026 as the new CEO of the PGA Tour, coming over from the NFL, and almost immediately began reshaping the structure of the sport. Field sizes at full field events were cut from 156 players down to 144. Smaller events shrank from 132 to 120. And most controversially of all, the number of fully exempt tour cards was slashed from 125 to 100, meaning 25 players who used to have guaranteed status now have nothing of the sort. The tour blamed pace of play. The players did not buy it for a second. Veterans like Lucas Glover called the explanation insulting, and major champion Matt Fitzpatrick publicly backed him, saying it was pathetic that the pace of play issue comes up every year and nothing ever gets done. But the change that really set the sport on fire came from above the PGA Tour entirely, from the USGA and the R&A, the two bodies that govern golf worldwide. Their decision is the golf ball rollback. Beginning in 2028, professional golfers will be required to use a ball that travels meaningfully shorter than the one they use today, with estimates ranging from around 12 yards for officials up to 15 or 20 yards in independent testing. The stated reason is course preservation, the idea that modern players hit the ball so far that classic courses have been rendered obsolete, and the reaction from the players has been nuclear. Justin Thomas called the USGA's decisions selfish and said the rollback is bad for the game, delivering the now famous line asking whether they will make a mile longer so the fastest mile time does not change, or raise the NBA hoop because players can jump higher. Bryson DeChambeau called it the most atrocious, uninspiring thing you could possibly do to golf. On the other side, Rory McIlroy publicly supported the rollback, arguing it would make almost no difference to the average golfer and would put the sport on a more sustainable path. The biggest names in the game are now split down the middle, fighting each other in public over the future of the sport. So where does the world number one stand in all of this? And this is where it gets interesting, because Scottie Scheffler does not operate like Justin Thomas or Bryson DeChambeau. He is not bombastic. He does not chase headlines. When Scottie Scheffler speaks, he chooses his words carefully, which is exactly why his reaction carries so much weight. And the core of his frustration is not really about distance at all. It is about something deeper. Scheffler's biggest issue with the people running golf is when their decisions take skill out of the game and replace it with luck. We saw this clearly at the 2025 PGA Championship at Quail Hollow. The course was soaked from heavy rain, but officials chose not to allow players to lift, clean, and place their golf balls. The result was chaos. Scheffler hit a perfect drive into the fairway, only for his ball to pick up mud, and that mud ball sent his approach sideways into a double bogey on the 16th hole. Afterward, Scheffler called the situation frustrating, making the point that a rules decision had turned a skills competition into a lottery. That is the heart of how Scottie Scheffler views all of these changes. He does not mind a hard test, he minds an unfair one. He wants the best player to win, and he is deeply skeptical of any rule, whether it is a ball rollback or a brutal course setup, that narrows the gap between the great players and the rest by introducing randomness. And that frustration boiled over again at the most recent major. At the 2026 PGA Championship at Arnhem, where Aaron Rai walked away with the trophy, Scheffler was among the players openly critical of how the course had been set up. The greens, the pin positions, the sheer difficulty produced a bunched leaderboard, where in the eyes of the best players, skill was no longer separating the field the way it should. When the world number one starts publicly questioning whether the setup is rewarding great golf, the governing bodies should be listening, because no one on earth has more credibility on the subject than Scottie Scheffler. Quick pause. If you think Scottie Scheffler is right, that these rule changes are hurting the game, type "let them play" in the comments. If you think the governing bodies are doing the right thing for golf's future, say that too. I read every single one. And if you want to know whether Scheffler can pull off history at the US Open, stick around, because that is where this story is heading. Here is why his voice towers over everyone else's. No player has been more dominant in golf over the last 5 years than Scottie Scheffler. He has 4 major championships already, 2 Masters titles in 2022 and 2024, a 5-stroke demolition at the 2025 PGA Championship at Quail Hollow, and a 4-stroke victory at the 2025 Open Championship at Royal Portrush to claim the Claret Jug. He has been world number 1 for a seemingly endless stretch, the most automatic winner the sport has seen since prime Tiger Woods. When a player that dominant tells you a rule is bad for golf, it is not the complaint of someone struggling to keep up. It is the verdict of the best player alive. And it all leads to the biggest stage of his career. Because there is one major championship Scottie Scheffler has never won. The US Open, the Masters, the PGA, the Open Championship, all conquered. The US Open is the only piece missing from the career Grand Slam, and if he captures it, he becomes just the 7th man in the entire history of golf to complete it, joining an elite group that includes Gene Sarazen, Ben Hogan, Gary Player, Jack Nicklaus, Tiger Woods, and most recently Rory McIlroy. It would cement him not just as the best of his era, but as one of the greatest who ever lived. And the timing is almost cinematic. The 2026 US Open runs from June 18th to the 21st, and that final round on June 21st falls on Scottie Scheffler's 30th birthday. Imagine completing the career Grand Slam, becoming an immortal of the sport, on the day you turn 30. You could not script it better. The stars, as many in golf have pointed out, do appear to be aligning, but here is the cruel twist, and the reason his rule complaints suddenly feel so loaded. The 2026 US Open is being hosted by the USGA, the very body whose ball rollback Scheffler's peers have been savaging, the same organization the players have accused of selfish decision-making. And it is being held at Shinnecock Hills in Southampton, New York, one of the most brutal and unforgiving courses in all of American golf. The last time the US Open visited Shinnecock, in 2018, Brooks Koepka won at just 1 over par. The third round that year produced a scoring average above 75, and players walked off the course publicly calling it broken and unfair. This is exactly the kind of setup, fast, punishing, on the edge of chaos, that Scheffler has warned against. He is walking into a test run by the people he disagrees with, on a course with a history of turning skill into survival. And his own US Open history adds another layer of pressure. In 8 career appearances, Scheffler has never won this championship. His best finish was a runner-up back in 2022. He has posted several top 10s, proving he can contend, but he has also had his nightmares, none worse than the 2024 US Open at Pinehurst, where he stumbled to a tie for 43rd, and famously described the game of golf as a mental torture chamber. For a player this dominant, the US Open has been his one stubborn blind spot, the major that refuses to bend to his greatness. So what are his actual chances? Despite never winning it, Scottie Scheffler is the betting favorite to win the 2026 US Open, sitting around plus 450, shorter than anyone else in the field, and the form backs it up. Coming into the championship, he has racked up a win and multiple top 5 finishes, including a string of runner-up results that show he is rounding into peak form at exactly the right moment. His game is built for the US Open in many ways. He is the best ball striker in the world, relentlessly accurate, mentally unshakable, and almost impossible to rattle over 4 grinding days. A Shinnecock setup that punishes wild play and rewards precision should, in theory, suit him perfectly. But that is also the danger. A course this severe, run by a body this committed to making it hard, can produce exactly the kind of luck-driven chaos Scheffler has spent months warning about. A bad bounce, a mud ball, a brutal pin on the wrong afternoon, and even the best player in the world can be knocked out of a championship that should be his. That is the irony at the center of this entire story. Scottie Scheffler's biggest complaint about modern golf, that the rules and setups are introducing randomness and taking skill out of the equation, is now the single biggest threat standing between him and history. He is the best player in the world, openly skeptical of the people running the game, walking onto the most punishing stage they have, with the career Grand Slam and a 30th birthday celebration on the line. If he wins, he silences every doubt and joins the immortals. If the setup bites him the way Shinnecock has bitten so many before, his warnings about the direction of the sport will look painfully prophetic. Either way, Scottie Scheffler has made his position clear, and now he has to go prove it the only way that matters, with a golf club in his hands, on the toughest test the game can offer, against a governing body he does not fully trust. The whole golf world will be watching to see whether the best player alive can rise above the chaos, or whether the chaos finally catches even him. If this breakdown got you ready for the US Open, drop a like before you scroll away. It is the single biggest thing that tells the algorithm to push these stories to other golf fans who might never see them. And hit subscribe, because this story is only going to get bigger as Shinnecock gets closer. There is a lot more coming.